Hello, you are watching Eye on Africa. I'm Nadia Massi in for Georgia Calvin-Smith this Monday. The headlines. Tear gas in Maputo as the Mozambique opposition protests the killing of two prominent figures. Opposition leader Venancio Mondlane, who had called a general strike this Monday, among those caught up in the tear gas. A spotlight on gender-based violence in Kenya 6 weeks after the killing of the Ugandan Olympian Rebecca Cheptegei. Women telling France 24 authorities are failing to help victims. And a week without new cases of the Marburg virus in Rwanda, a tentative sign of optimism in the fight against the Ebola-like disease. First, it has been a day of unrest in Maputo, Mozambique, in the wake of the killing of two members of the political opposition on Saturday. This Monday, police fired tear gas at protesters who were demonstrating against the killings and what they say is electoral fraud. Among those out in the streets was Venancio Mondlane, the main opposition challenger to the decades-long rule of the governing party. Here's the view of his supporters.
Our rights to protest as Mozambican citizens gave me the will to go to the streets. What's happening in the country are things which I do not understand. There are killings, kidnappings, and we end up not understanding who's behind it, and automatically Mozambique isn't safe anymore.
The people chose Venancio Mondlane, but what's happening is that the party in power does not want to give the power to Venancio. That's why the people are in the streets protesting, just like me. I voted for him. That's why I'm here to re-vindicate my rights.
Well, covering the story for us is our regional correspondent, Tom Canetti. He explains why the killing of Elvino Diaz and another member of the opposition has sparked so much anger.
Now, opposition leader Venancio Mondlane has told protesters to go home after a nationwide strike that he called on Monday turned ugly when police allegedly fired live rounds into the crowd. Mondlane himself was seen running away with his bodyguards protecting him as authorities fired tear gas at him. He then went on to tell protesters to go home and that the job of the general strike was successful. This comes after his lawyer, Elvin Diaz, was assassinated in his car on Saturday morning. Diaz was supposedly getting ready to challenge the October 9 elections, which EU observers have said were rigged. Now, Professor Adriano Nvunga says that this political assassination is representative of the government's will to intimidate anyone wanting to challenge these elections.
We have seen it coming. They have been circulating messages threatening Elvino Diaz, particularly, of people that intersect with the establishment, intersect with Frelimo. So we saw it coming, but we never believed that it would reach this point of killing them in such a brutality, in such a cold blood.
Now, likely to win these elections is Daniel Chapo from the ruling Frelimo party. They've been in power for about 50 years since Mozambique gained independence from Portugal. But a lot of the young people in this country have voiced their need for change. Mondlane was representative of that change and popular amongst the youth. And this frustration of this latest saga has been seen on the streets where young people have been burning Frelimo flags in the streets of Maputo.
Tom Canetti for us there. Now in Chad, the opposition Transformers Party has said it will not field candidates in December's parliamentary and local elections, claiming the results of the poll have already been decided. In May, Mahamat Deby was elected president in a vote that was also boycotted by the opposition and international observers say was not credible. He had promised an 18th-month transition to democracy, but has extended that by 2 years, and since May, several opposition figures have left the country. Now, it's been 6 weeks since the Ugandan Olympian Rebecca Cheptegei, who was killed by her former boyfriend in Kenya. That attack underscores a troubling trend of male violence against female athletes in Kenya. Indeed, while such high-profile cases do draw attention, about 30% of Kenyan women are thought to be subject to violence behind closed doors, as Olivia Bizot in Nairobi now reports.
Since 2021, 3 professional female athletes are believed to have been killed by their partners in Kenya's running capital. Tirop Angels was set up after one of these murders.
It's important to link me with people who are going through a difficult time. We need to help and look out for each other and be there for those who are struggling.
Weekly workshops are held here, giving the local community a chance to discuss and learn more about gender-based violence.
You have financial problem, so you came intend to train, you don't have food, you don't have rent, facilities. So you say, oh, I have get this guy, let me depend on him so that I can train perfect after there, and then the problem started.
While the abuse of athletes often grabs international headlines, a third of Kenyan women endure similar violence. Franny says her daughter was raped by her husband 6 years ago, but the institutions and authorities meant to help victims instead made her suffering worse.
When I went to the court, he'd already paid the police some money, so they eventually closed the case. There was nothing I could do. My friends and family who have experienced similar things prefer to stay silent because they don't trust the system.
A handful of lawyers are committed to helping women, but only 7% of reported sexual assault cases lead to conviction.
We have good laws, but implementation is a different game altogether. One of the changes we would like to see definitely is on the investigation level, on how they are handled and how they collect evidence.
Societal attitudes can be slow to change. A recent survey estimates that 42% of people still think that wife beating is acceptable under certain conditions.
The president of Cameroon, Paul Biya, landed this Monday at Yaoundé airport after several weeks abroad amid rumours about his health. The state broadcaster showed the 91-year-old next to his wife Chantal, shaking hands with officials as a crowd waited to greet him. Questions, though, about Biya's whereabouts began to grow when he disappeared from public view after leaving Beijing at the beginning of September, and the government banned local media from discussing his health. Biya is the continent's second longest serving leader in the job for the past 41 years. He has not picked a successor and not ruled out running again in elections next year. Now, this weekend, over 100 Senegalese nationals in Lebanon were repatriated amid the ongoing Israeli bombardments there. Around 30,000 Lebanese people do live in Senegal, and the war has deeply impacted the Lebanese Senegalese community, one of the continent's oldest diasporas. Reporting now from Dakar Airport, here's Caitlin Kelly.
A long-awaited embrace. Laughter and hugs filled Yoff's airport on Saturday as 117 Senegalese citizens touched down on safe ground, fleeing the conflict in Lebanon. Chartered by the government, this was the first flight to arrive from Lebanon since fighting erupted. Senegalese-born Khada Hashem arranged her family's return, a bittersweet moment marked by the losses and devastation left behind.
Israel bombed my father's house and almost entirely destroyed my brother's house too. In my father's house were my niece and nephew. My nephew died, he was 14, and the little girl that they pulled out of the rubble, she's 11. And we could have lost more people than that. I could have lost 5 members of my family if they hadn't been in the garden.
On board were both dual nationals and several Senegalese who were employed as domestic workers in Lebanon. Vintou, herself a former domestic worker in Lebanon for 20 years, used her experience to help organise the evacuation flight for those who were stranded.
Every day I knocked on every door so that my sisters over there could be repatriated, because I know what I left behind. I know what the bombs mean.
Diaspora members like Issam, born in Senegal, are among the many deeply concerned about the ongoing war.
We all have ties, roots, origins that make it resonate. It resonates a lot with us, in our emotions and our hearts. There's a huge feeling of concern. The feeling of injustice is immense.
Senegal's 30,000-strong Lebanese community has been rallying for action. On Saturday, they took to the streets of Dakar, protesting Israeli strikes in Lebanon and Gaza.
Finally from us, no new cases of the Marburg virus have been detected in Rwanda this past week, raising hopes of isolating the deadly outbreak. A new experimental vaccine is also being trialled. In all, 62 cases of Marburg have been confirmed and 15 people have died since the outbreak first came into play in late September. Laurent Bersticker has this report.
A warning to Rwandan authorities. After praising the country's response to a potentially deadly outbreak of the Marburg virus, the head of the World Health Organization urged the government to remain vigilant as long as the disease wasn't fully contained.
We're dealing with one of the world's most dangerous viruses, and continued vigilance is essential. Enhanced surveillance, contact tracing, and infection prevention and control measures must continue at scale until the outbreak is declared over.
A highly infectious hemorrhagic fever with no approved vaccine or treatment, Marburg has a fatality rate of up to 88%, making it one of the world's deadliest viruses. Rwanda, which announced the outbreak in late September, has so far recorded over 60 cases, but has managed to keep mortality rates below 25%. Earlier this month, authorities began rolling out an experimental vaccine that's still undergoing clinical trials. And with no new infections detected in the past week, the country's health minister expressed hope the epidemic would soon be contained.
So we saw that at week 3, which brought a lot of hope that this is going to be contained quickly. And now this week, we are seeing even better results than 50%. We're observing 92% decrease in infections.
Despite the positive signs, Rwanda could yet be facing an uphill battle to get rid of the virus. Authorities still need to wait another 35 days without a new case to officially proclaim the end of the outbreak.
And that is a wrap from me and the team here on Eye on Africa. Thanks for watching.